Hey, everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle of the Profluent Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today, we are doing it again with my good buddy Adam Cook, co-founder of Campus Inc. Excited to dive in and learn, and it's not my story to tell. So let's welcome Adam to the show. My man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Been watching what you guys have been doing in this space for a while, and I have a lot of respect for you and Andrew, so appreciate the chance to talk today.
Yeah, and likewise, man, we've been watching what you and Steve have been doing, pioneering a space and sort of leading from the front. So excited to really unpack not just everything that you guys are doing, but speak to the broader market as a whole and where you see things going. Adam, I think it's so important as we get going, one, to understand the origin story, who you are, and how the hell did Campus Inc. become what it is today?
Yeah, like most things, the real story is better than anything you could probably make up. So my background is in athletics. So I grew up in the Chicagoland area, was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to play volleyball at the collegiate level in California. So my dad, was a PE teacher, athletics director, coached collegiate baseball. My brother played soccer in college. So sports have always kind of been a part of my life, something that I've loved and have cared a lot about. So played collegiate volleyball after my playing career, got into strength and conditioning for a little bit, and then kind of did a couple of random things. I had an opportunity to help lead a program that sent college athletes overseas to use their sport to work on, different things like international diplomacy and community development and things like that. So just fell in love with the industry as a whole. Ended up back in Chicago. I was working for a small startup. It was a SaaS tool for the print industry, and that's where I met Stephen Farrig. He was a customer of the tool, and I didn't know anything about the decorating industry at all. And so he was kind of my sage that taught me everything I needed to know. We became good friends. I left that company, and fast forward a couple years later, NIL legislation changes. Stephen and I stayed close. We're really, our production facility is right off the campus of University of Illinois. And so the men's basketball team started hitting Stephen up saying, "Hey, let's get our merch going. What can we do?" And he was like, "I don't want to ruin anybody's eligibility." So I started working with him on some of that stuff. And Stephen is, you've chatted with him. He's an amazing visionary. He really has that go-getter entrepreneurial mindset. And so he saw this incredible opportunity that NIL was going to be, but he wanted to do it the right way. And back in those early days, there weren't a lot of people who were wanting to do it the right way in a long and sustainable way. And so I started consulting for him for a little bit. And then as we were kind of chatting back and forth, we wanted to be athlete forward. We wanted to make sure we kept the best interests of both the school and the athlete at the forefront, which was, in those days, a pretty vanguard idea, which is crazy to think now. And
Wild.
so, we had a lot of late night conversations, and he was like, "How cool would it be if we had a really great investor mentor that was really athlete forward, somebody like Mark Cuban? He gets it. He's an entrepreneur, but he cares about his athletes." A couple of days later, I get a screenshot where he had cold emailed Mark, letting him know what we were doing. And Mark replied and said, "Hey, I'm interested." And so that really was the start of saying, "Hey, if Mark thinks this is a great idea, we must really be onto something." I have to give a shout out to my wife here at this point in the story, because she was 9 months pregnant with our first kid.
Love that.
Yeah, she was like, "Hey, if Mark's in, let's go after this thing." And so I left my job at the time, came on full time at Campus Inc., and the rest is history. We went from one school to 175 now. We've paid out over $2.5 million to athletes. That's continuing to grow. We've got 25,000 athletes signed on the platform, and now we're in this new era of NIL. We've gone out of the kind of first 4 years, and we're kind of tip of the spear going into the rev share area.
No, it's super cool, man. And, I think we watched a lot of early pioneers take a couple different approaches to the NIL market. And some would argue, Adam, that it's still the Wild West, right? We're maybe at the bottom of the first inning of what's going on here. As you reflect back on, sort of the first 4 years of the build, what are some of the learnings that you and Steve now take into this next iteration of rev share and, the evolution of the college athlete journey?
Yeah, the funny thing about the NIL stuff is when we talk about it in the collegiate space, yes, it's brand new, but name, image, and likeness and the idea of NIL, even the clauses in contracts about who owns NIL, that's not a new idea. That's been
Sure.
happening at the pros for years. And so when this all started, there were, a lot of incumbent companies that just said, hey, this happens in the pros. Great. Take the pro model, smack it right on top of the college model. We'll call it good, and everybody should be happy. But the way that the college space still, even with the rev share and all that happening, functions is fundamentally different than the pro space, right? I mean, you have way more sports, you have way more parties involved, you have federal funding that's tied to Title IX, and there's just so much more nuance in the college space than the pro. So we really took the approach of saying, sure, NIL as a concept is not new, but there's no collective bargaining agreement in the college space, right? There's no athlete representation at all in the college space back in these days. Nobody's sitting at the table for them. So why would we take a collectively bargained percentage, which the kind of industry rate, it was about 4% at the time, and go to a bunch of track and field athletes or swim and dive or women's soccer players or men's volleyball players and say, hey, you're going to get 4% of every item that's sold. Just be happy about it and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Stephen really looked at that and was like, that's not right. That's not fair. And there is a world where this works in the influencer world, right? You take a look at Mr. Beast. He can sell merch. He can, he's got a floor of costs that he has. He can mark up his merch to whatever he wants, and he gets to keep the difference between the cost and the final retail price. So we kind
Absolutely.
of married both of those things of saying, we know what our costs are as decorators, owning our own production facility. We know there's going to be licensing on top of this. If we build in what the retail cost is versus what our cost of goods is for a reasonable price, why shouldn't we give the athlete everything in between that instead of just kind of shave off a fraction of a percentage? And so that, like I said, was really a revolutionary idea. That coupled with the fact that we knew that there was market opportunity for these sports outside of men's and women's basketball and football. So we went to schools and said, look, there's 180,000 Division I student athletes alone. We want to support as many of them as we can. We want to support women's soccer. We want to support women's volleyball. There is opportunity here. And that really resonated with schools because they had coaches banging down their doors saying, cool, you took care of quarterback. Cool, you took care of running back. What about my team? I mean, we were able to provide a good solution for them there.
No, it's really cool, and I think that was the admirable approach. And a lot of folks wanted to service, the athletes that were in maybe non-revenue generating sports or that weren't getting the attention. I think a lot of people struggled to do that, and you guys navigated that in a really, in a diplomatic way. I think is a really good way to put it, putting the athlete first. Adam, let's just take a pause real quick, right? We sort of dove head in first into it, but if you have an outsider listening, how do you explain what Campus Inc. is and what exactly you guys do for athletes? Let's sort of lay the foundation and then we'll build from there.
Yeah, so Campus Inc. is an apparel company that focuses on collegiately licensed apparel. So we work with schools across all conferences, across most divisions, and we provide opportunities for athletes to create and sell apparel that carries their name, image, and likeness along with the logo of the school. So the easiest way to think about it is if you want to buy your favorite college athlete's jersey, you can buy that from the NIL store in Campus Inc. If you want to buy your favorite athletes, jerseys, hoodies, whatever you want that's going to carry the name and number of an athlete, you can get that from us. Now, the next piece that we do, and this is where it gets really exciting, is we take moments that happen on the court or the field or the pool, and we turn those into merchandise as well. So you think about hot market stuff, right? Stuff that happens in the postseason, buzzer beaters, what have you. That's going to happen all throughout the year, not just in the postseason. And those are moments that we want to be able to turn into merchandise for athletes and allow them to make money. So a really fun one that happened really early on was Lamont Butler at San Diego State in the national championship semifinals, hits a buzzer beater baseline three-pointer to send them to the national championship for the first time in program history. We had a Butler at the buzzer with that moment designed on a t-shirt, officially licensed for sale. They were the first game of the night, up by halftime of the second game of the night. So that really quick turn moments, I mean, we like to say we try to move at the speed of sport, right? This stuff happens quickly. Fans react emotionally. They want to celebrate that moment. Why shouldn't the athlete be able to monetize that? If you go to Campus Inc. in the NIL store, you can find merchandise that's going to celebrate those moments that happen on.
It's so cool, right? And I love that line, move at the speed of sport, right? And I think that we see these moments come and go so quickly, and we memorialize some of the larger moments. The Stanley Cup, you can buy the merch right away, but to be able to catch that in real time, I think is such a unique opportunity to capitalize, and I think it attracts a different fan base, right? A different buying persona. Let me ask you this, because you're not just going after sort of the stars that we'll call them, or the most notable figures. How do you guys manage this model with like a high touch point with these athletes? And like, how do you do this at scale? What's sort of that playbook that you guys run internally to be able to go ahead and turn that so quickly?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and we got this question early on really often, and I think everybody's kind of looking for a hack, right? Like what's your listening tool, or how do you hack it and figure it out? And it's like we just hire people and have a mission and a vision that people really believe in, saying we want to celebrate those moments. We want to work with the athletes. I remember having conversations with not competitors, but just other people in the space that were like, ugh, like you get approval from every athlete. You have to talk to them. And I'm like, dude, that's the best part of my day. Like, of course
That's
I
cool.
want to do that, right? Like, why are you in the NIL space leveraging collegiate athletes' likeness if you have zero desire to bring what their vision is and celebrate what they're about to life? And so a small part of it really is nothing other than just believing in the mission, that this is important work, that it's exciting work, that fans will resonate with it, and then committing to doing the work. Now, there is a little bit of a strategy behind Campus Inc. was built off of using collegiate students to tap into the college market, right? So if we can teach college students how to design and sell apparel, then they're going to be able to earn great money while they're in college, but they're also going to be able to provide a solution and solve a pain point for their community and their friends on campus. We took that similar approach to the NIL space, where we said, I can't be boots on the ground at 175 schools, right? Like, I can't build a good enough API that's going to pull from ESPN all of the moments across all these schools. So
Sure.
let's lean into the professional development opportunity of NIL. This isn't just professional development for the athletes. This is creating a whole new ecosystem where we were able to hire students on campus and say, are you interested in getting involved in digital media? Are you interested in getting involved in college sports? Help us run our social channels, be our boots on the ground. What's happening across your campus's athletics department? Are there moments that are happening? Is somebody, did somebody have a great game? Is somebody going back home to compete for the first time? Or who's up and coming? Did somebody come off the bench and have a moment? And so we really leveraged that network across the country of those students who are also passionate, also excited about getting into the industry, also excited about creating opportunity for their athletics department, and allowed that network to inform us about kind of what was happening across the country.
It's so neat when you can get to the nucleus and the pulse, and we always say you can't buy culture, right? And I think this is a great example of it, right? Like when you're so ingrained that it just feels natural, and then this long tail of opportunity. And I got to imagine the storytelling, the identity of these athletes, like this all feels organic, and it has this ripple effect on campus that I think not only drives more sales, but it makes this more cohesive, when those athletes are participating, day in and day out on campus there. So I'm curious though, like sort of piggybacking that, you getting to talk and be so hands-on with the athletes. Talk to me, like when you meet them, what's been some of the biggest behavioral traits that you've been able to pick up on, like that athletes, as they work with brands and as they start to create, sort of liquidity from their name, image, and likeness? Was there been any surprises in their behavior that, as you've talked to so many, that you didn't see coming?
Yeah, I think a lot has been said about this in the media, and everybody covers the stories that are getting a lot of clicks, and the stories at Tennessee that we don't need to get into, and the
Yep.
stories at Miami that we don't need to get into. Those are so few and far between. The vast majority of athletes, even high profile athletes, I'm not talking about but it's only the non-rev sports that are easy to work with. Even high profile athletes, they really understand the opportunity that is here for them, and they want to take advantage of it. And the unique
Cool.
thing about merchandise is, I'm not a car dealer going to an athlete saying, show up for 25 minutes and I'm going to pay you, $200,000 for this signing or whatever. I'm making
Yep.
those numbers up. Don't quote me on that.
What cars are you selling?
Yeah, exactly. I, we're going to the athlete saying, we want to tell your story. We want to immortalize what you do on the court and who you are as a person through apparel. And we want to use this vehicle to help you deepen your fan connection, right? And then when we can layer the school on top of that, we really double down on that fan brand connection. That's something that the athlete's eyes light up. I was just talking to a Power 5 quarterback. This is literally yesterday, and we were kind of spitting some ideas out and kind of talking dream state, and like all of a sudden his wheels started to turn. He's like, can we do this? That's dope. I didn't even think about that. So it really is an exciting thing to be able to work with an athlete and get them to catch the vision of, this is way less about let's just get a bag and get you paid. That's a part of it. I want to pay you, and I
Sure.
want to pay you really well. But how can I tell your story that's going to go with you well into your pro career and stick with you even well after your playing career? How can I help you get fans, be fans of you for life? And it's by telling your story in an authentic way and using apparel to do that.
Think about that, right? Like, I mean, fast forward 3 or 4 years post graduation, you're working in the professional world, and now there's all kinds of ways to show up unique, taking not just a picture, but a shirt that shows up to a prospect client of you playing. There's a lot of really cool applications that go far beyond just trying to sell it, while you're playing at that university, which I think is exciting, right? We're setting the foundation for these athletes to become professionals far beyond the field or court. Adam, one last question on the NIL front, and then I want to dive into Campus Inc. as the business and where it's going. But, obviously the House case just settled. We're, sort of moving into this next phase of it. How does that impact how you guys think about where you're navigating or the roadmap for Campus Inc.? Does this pour gas on the fire? Is there a pivot? How do you guys think about, some of the things that you can't control that's dictating the market?
Yeah, we're actually really excited about this. I think that this is, not only is it a long time coming, but I think that the way that we've built our business has been with the understanding that this was going to happen eventually, and it's going to create some more opportunities for us that we've been waiting for. So one of the most exciting things about this is it kind of removes a little bit of that semi-requirement or fear that schools had of interacting really closely and helping their athletes navigate this space. If you remember early on, and a lot of this kind of stuck through until the settlement was done, where schools were told, you're not allowed to help an athlete review their contract. Well, that didn't work and wasn't helpful to anybody. And so what the settlement has done for us is really removed a lot of those obstacles, where schools now can say, we've got a great partner. We trust them. We know that they do a great job. So let's actually help integrate this deeper instead of trying to keep everything at an arm's length. So it's going to
Mm.
remove a lot of the obstacles that just made things more difficult for difficulty's sake. It's
Mm.
going to allow schools to work a lot more transparently with athletes on designs and things like that. It's going to allow us to work more closely with athletes and schools on specific activations. Like we've worked with UConn women's basketball team on some philanthropic activations, selling really specialized women's basketball jerseys that gave money to breast cancer awareness or gave money to different pediatric cancer activations. Now the school can be much more involved in those things instead of having to stay away from it because there was an NIL component. I think the other piece that it does is it brings us much closer. We're still a ways away from this, but it brings us much closer to a truly mature ecosystem, where we talked about this already a couple minutes ago, but in the pros, you have somebody sitting at the table collectively bargaining on behalf of the best interest of the athletes. That's never happened in the collegiate space. It still has not happened in the collegiate space. We're still a ways away from that, but we're getting closer to being able to say, hey, athletes, you don't have to just settle for whatever a company arbitrarily decides they're going to give you. We're going to set some standards here and make sure that you're taken care of in a way that you should be. And, not all the money is going to go just to QB1 and RB1. It's going to have a standard set in place. So I'm really excited about this next era. We've already had schools reach out to us and have great ideas about wanting to work more collaboratively and just be a lot closer and more transparent.
No, I think it's exciting. And, like as I'm listening to you, I mean, it just like the spidey senses go off of it's a next phase of growth, right? Like, I mean, it's we set benchmarks, which then allow us to create, more opportunity. But that also comes with its own challenges from a business side. So I'm curious, like, with you guys sort of working from the internal, owning everything, the process soup to nuts, how do you guys handle this from a fundraising standpoint? How do you guys position yourself to, keep up with the demand of what the market's going to give you?
Yeah. So, we recognize the growth opportunity and we definitely want to pour some gasoline on that. So right now we're in the middle of a strategic raise. We found a great lead. It's got a strong investment board on there, but we've got some room for some people to jump in. So yeah, that's kind of where we're looking at it, is saying, hey, we see this opportunity. This is kind of our second starting line, right? Like if you say July 1, 2021 was the first starting line. House settlement comes in play, goes in effect July 1, 2025. We're 8 days into that now. We've got a second starting line. And so we've opened up this round of fundraising. Yeah, I mean, I'd go ahead and just shameless plug right now. If this is compelling to you, or you're interested, or want to learn more, the space excites you, or you feel like you're looking for a jumping in point, we're definitely open to some intros. We have some space left in the round, so you can feel free to reach out to us.
No, it's super cool. And it's exciting, right? Like, I mean, we talk about like, how do you de-risk these opportunities? And NIL has always been one, like, because of the Wild West and the nature of it, it's been very challenging to find, companies like yourself that have stable footing and grounding and actually built a foundation to continue to bolt on and accelerate. So it's really exciting. Real quick, did you have a thought on that? And then I want to take it a couple different directions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can see the staying power that people have and the reasons why they have it in the industry. There's the competition has gotten smaller, not in a quantity standpoint, but the people who have stuck around have gotten better. It's just the quantity of people who have stuck around has gotten smaller. And I think that's a good thing, especially when you're dealing in an industry where there isn't those standards, or there aren't those standards rather, put in place yet. And so yeah, we're super excited about the next era for sure.
No, it's really cool. Let me ask you this, like sitting in the Profluence lens, obviously there's a ton of shakeup going on in college, and as a byproduct, we're watching a lot of emerging leagues pop up, Adam, right? And your sport of volleyball, we see quite a bit of activity, track and field, the list goes on and on. How do you guys think about subsequent opportunities that may apply the same principles but outside of the collegiate realm? Are they bright, shiny objects, or are those opportunities that you guys, look at pursuing as the business continues to grow?
Oh, 100%. I think there's a little bit of both, as there always will be, but there's a lot of pressure on non-revenue sports right now, right? This revenue requirement, this rev share requirement that the House settlement has put on athletic departments puts a lot of pressure on budgets. And, this is not a secret. You can look at this information. I just don't think a lot of people do, but most athletic departments operate at a loss. This is not an incredibly profitable segment of the university. And so there is going to be a lot of shifting in how they operate, in what they support and what they don't support. I think we see a reality of non-revenue sports being on the chopping block more and more. As much as I hate to see it, it's just the reality of making the dollars and cents work. So what I think that leads to is more sports-specific academies pop up. And so when you talk about some of these ancillary opportunities, some of these ancillary leagues, the Olympic competition is not going to go away, right? The need, the desire, the market demand for those sports is not just going to all of a sudden dissipate and evaporate into thin air. You're just going to have other entities support that need. And so whether it's academies, whether it's additional leagues like Unrivaled, or, these 3v3 tournaments, or the TST tournament, which just now partnered with US Soccer officially, I think you're going to see that more and more. One, because the college ecosystem is changing, but two, as more and more money gets put into, amateur or college or youth sports, you're seeing this whole industry turn into more of an asset class as opposed to just an entertainment vehicle.
Yeah, really well said. And you sort of took the second point where I was going to go, but I'm going to still sort of press, and then we'll turn the corner and start to bring this home. But like college, was sort of that first point where we could monetize the name, image, and likeness. The New York Times today dropped an article around the $40 billion youth sport industry, right? And we're watching academies become more and more prevalent as a vehicle there. How do you guys think about the downstream of athletes and capturing them earlier in the journey, and sort of building that brand into their college days? How do you guys approach that right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right? Because you get into the realm where you're not maybe working with a minor, but you are exclusively working with minors, and so there's a lot more legal considerations that come into that.
Mm.
There's a lot more scale there as well. So I'll use the example of pros to college to kind of paint this picture of what happens then from college to high school or youth. Is in the pros, you work with one licensing agency, right? If you want to go through the NBA, you've got one licensing agency and you've got one entity that's going to approve artwork. And you've got one entity that's going to, own the collective rights of every NBA player. You bring that down to college. Now you've got 6, maybe 7 different licensing agencies, but every institution has their own licensing director that's going to approve artwork and want their brand expressed in the market differently. And you've got, no collective bargaining. Take that same logic down now to high school or youth sports, and it gets dispersed even further. And so unless you have really sophisticated technology, it's going to be almost impossible to manage. But that doesn't mean that there isn't great opportunity. I think a couple years back with like Overtime Elite and like Mikey Williams, right?
Yep.
I mean, like there's for sure this opportunity there. It's just, you talk about the Wild West in college. I think there's a little bit too much blue ocean right now in the high school space, but people are definitely starting to dip their toes there.
It is one ocean that I do not envy the people that are sailing there right now, Adam. But you know what? There's opportunity, and I think it's an inevitable that it's going to happen. So, I mean, look at man, this is such a fun conversation. I think we get excited when you actually get to talk to folks that have a tenure in this space, even though it's still very immature and developing. You guys are OGs in it, and again, like the mission, the promised land of what you guys are doing is so athlete centric. It's so exciting, right? Like there's a capitalistic lens, but you're really doing what's right for the ecosystem. And, for that, we appreciate you guys. Let me ask you this. Over the 4 years you guys have been running and gunning, do you have a favorite merch drop that sticks out to you?
Oh, man, that's a great question. There's 2 that immediately pop into mind. One is a football athlete and one is a wrestler. So I'll go football first. This is Hunter Pontius at North Dakota State. He blocks a field goal in overtime to seal the game for North Dakota. And the way that the ball hit his arm, the laces left an imprint on his forearm. And there's this amazing photo that went viral of him in the locker room afterwards, holding up his arm. You can see the imprint of the football. And so we took that photo. He's an offensive lineman or defensive lineman. I took that photo, put it on a shirt for him, kind of stylized it for him. And the shirt caught fire, went crazy, earned him a ton of money. So that was really fun. I mean, just the amount of times that happens is so rare. The second one is a wrestler. So this is Matt Ramos at Purdue. It's a number of years ago. It goes up against the number 1 wrestler in the country. I'm totally blanking on his name right now, but he's from Iowa. Upsets him in the Big Ten tournament. Again, moment goes viral. For us, this happened to be the day after, or maybe it was the night of Purdue, number 1 seed in the tournament for men's basketball, getting knocked out in the first round. So everybody's on a down, Purdue's on a down, and then you turn the channel and here's Matt Ramos shocking the world, upsetting, the number 1 wrestler in the country. Same thing, took a photo that went viral, put it on merch for him. The thing that was special about that one to me is that brought him so much attention. He earned a lot of money from the apparel sales as well, but he started to get other brand deals that, were reaching out to him because they're like, oh, this guy's open to NIL. And so that was really special because it was this thing that he did, turned it into apparel, caught fire, and then that opened up more and more opportunities for him. So those are the 2 that stick out to me that were a lot of fun to activate.
That's always cool, man. And, those are the stories that I think sometimes we get lost in the ether, and we always talk about the mic or the macro. It's neat to drill down into the micro and actually understand the real impact of what you guys are doing. And we appreciate it, man. It's really cool. We're excited to continue to watch the journey and evolve. You guys are going to be at the forefront of shaping what this state will, or state of sports will look like, man. So we feel like we're in good hands with you guys doing it. Any last words before we sign off, my friend?
No, man, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about what we're doing a little bit. It's still an insane space. It's still an insane industry. Probably got another 5 years or so before we really see any stabilization. I'll highlight Molly Pfeiffer is she works with a lot of our top talent, and I say this to our team a lot because when I was interviewing her to come on, I was like, how does this make you feel coming into an industry that, there's nothing that exists? And she said, man, I couldn't be more excited about solving problems for the first time. And that's what we love to do. We just like to say, look, nobody solved these problems before. And how lucky are we that we get to take a stab at it? So appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you, Scott.
Drop the mic, Adam. Thank you guys for everything you're doing. We look forward to watching the journey continue. And if you want to reach out to Adam and learn more about Campus Inc. or get involved in any way, Adam, what's the best way to reach you?
Adam.cook@campus.inc. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, looking forward to hearing from y'all.
Awesome. Thanks again for everything. We'll talk soon.